My guest on Talk Design today in the special series that we're doing for the AIA Austin Homes Tour for this October is Nick and Jess Deavers. Now, Nick and Jess are from NDJDA Architecture. They're on the podcast already, and with that, I want to tell you all that they are a dad and daughter team, and it brings this incredible dynamic. So if you've got time, go and listen to that one. But otherwise, today, we're going to talk about the home that they've got on the AIA Austin Open Homes Tour. And it's a fantastic house. It's called OFFbeat. It's in the Travis Heights neighborhood. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Guys, it is so lovely to have you back here. It is so cool. Our previous podcast was something really special. It stands out for me. So I'm looking forward to this. And I know I feel familiar with this house because we talked about it previously as well. Let's start out with a little bit for the people who haven't met you before, a little bit about you guys and the firm and what your values and ethics and drive is for the company.
That's a good question. Thanks for having us. Well, to know us, we're an architectural firm that is a very small one. You're looking at our entire office. We take on the number of projects that we can handle ourselves and try and stay personally involved in them. And it really speaks to what our message is, which is that we think that architecture is personal, that we care about connecting people with their places and with the earth and the land. And so we have a nice strategy that we like to engage our clients. We say that we like to design with our clients, not for our clients. And we get the biggest kick out of making a difference in their lives by having them discover a place that they will feel comfortable in and it'll just be warm to their soul.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Singing my song there. I love that. How many years in practice?
We've been in practice here in Austin. We started in about 1998, and Jess ended up joining us. She knows.
I joined about, I don't know, 15 years or so, and I worked off and on until I came more full-time, I think, around 2017.
Yeah, wow.
And she's recently become my partner. She's worked with me for many years. We, of course, know each other forever. And we...
At least my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. At least one of your whole lives. Yeah.
One of the things that's been a delight for me is that as she has come to become a part of this practice, she's brought an entirely new perspective to what I was doing. And what we're doing together is special because it has a new generational view of what is happening in the world, how to communicate to a bigger neighborhood. And the thing I credit Jessica with in our practice is really making us have a more open view of how we're impacting the land and our values of resource use. And so that's been the reinvigoration of our firm to add that to the nature of our work.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And Jess, thank you for sending me that little thing. I haven't listened to it yet, but that thing on the land yesterday, I'm like, oh, cool.
Yes.
I'm going to listen to that today on my drive home.
Yes.
I want to kick off with about OFFbeat and take me through the client brief for OFFbeat. And I know it's in East Mary Street, near town. Take me through that little neighborhood and then also the client's brief of what they were trying to get from their property.
Let me tell you how the clients came to us and how they came to this property, and then I'll let Jessica describe the house and what we've done. Essentially, our clients came to us from California, moved here wanting to take on a new place. They had built a modern house themselves from the ground up in California and loved the entire process. They, in fact, came to us with the idea. They said, we would like to build and work with you to design a house that appeals to our modern sensibilities, that focuses on the outdoors, and that basically connects to their sort of spirit of I'll call it openness. And they actually had a piece of property that was in a nearby neighborhood that they had just about purchased. And after a conversation with us, decided to pause long enough to look further, because what they discovered was the idea that we thought have a modern lifestyle in a historic house. And the reason this was appealing, and they had seen some examples of our work that led them to this, was that Austin has fantastic neighborhoods that are very near downtown. They're very walkable, they're desirable, they have parks on one side, they have these music venues and eateries that are very nearby, make these charming, pleasant, tree-covered walkways. And what had happened is that they decided, after having a conversation with us, to not be put off by the idea of finding an older home to restore and to make it new again. And so what we were excited about was this challenge to provide for our clients a modern house, something that connected with their open spirit and their love of the outdoors. But how do we do it and stay friendly to the neighbors who care so much about preserving this older home? And I'll start by just saying that the older home was loved enough by the neighborhood to preserve it, even though it was derelict and uninhabited for more than a decade.
Wow.
But this neighborhood had come out every time somebody had an idea to develop it and to destroy the house or to take it away. The neighbors loved it enough to fight off all those efforts until our client came and said, what we want to do is we want to preserve it while we make it new. And that was our strategy. And I wanted to say, in describing the house, I'm going to describe something that we saw in the house, and then I'll let Jessica to describe how we responded. And that is that what we noticed was that the house sits at the slight crick in the street at a slight rise in the hill. It was a little bit too above the ground, meaning that the house felt detached from the land, and that the house has a kind of bent, crooked gable in the front entry. It's very quaint, little, about 1,000 square foot original house. But with that little offbeat gable that it had a little radius window up above the radius door, but neither were aligned. They weren't even aligned. It was almost like a child had drawn this house and gotten everything a little bit off. And I think one of our first thoughts were that this quirkiness was something that we think a lot of people might have wanted to fix and to repair, or to, let's say,
align.
Align. To make sensible, to make sense of. Yeah.
That's it. But one of our thoughts was that wouldn't it be the correct response to love this house by starting with what its nature was. It was a quirky, charming little contributor to the neighborhood. Obviously, it had these values that people had seen it for many years. And so we decided to basically take on the challenge of making the historic preservation people appreciate our work by preserving those elements, bringing anything back that had been lost, but then creating the new experience and the surprise inside the house.
I love it. I love it. I'll get you to share a photo of that as well, but not right now, but share a photo of the front so that people can see that. And when people are on the tour, this is something, again, to watch out for. But go, Jess.
Yeah, when you arrive into the neighborhood, I wanted to say something about Travis Heights as well. It's a very special neighborhood just south of the river and what we call Lady Bird Lake, but it's actually not a lake. It's a tributary to the Grand River. And what's really interesting is that pocket neighborhood, when it was being formed, early 1900s, mid 20s, 1920s and 30s, it was being developed, and it was part of this urban planning idea that's called the City Beautiful movement. And the City Beautiful movement really believed that inside of a city, you could have these necklace of parks, almost like pearls. So there would be little parks strewn about in a neighborhood that would be accessible by the people that lived in that neighborhood. And this was an urban planning idea from that period. And so when you're going to the tour, make sure you take a look through the neighborhood. Don't just come straight through to the property. Go through and look at Stacy Park and all these little pocket parks that are so beautiful, because they're what make it really special. In one of the driving factors for us, we care very much about the environment. And one of the driving factors is to any addition is what's already there. And for us, the oldest inhabitants on the site, even older than the building, were these two prominent live oak trees. It's interestingly in the center of the property, of this rhombus-shaped property. And so you have these sort of interesting off-center kind of juxtaposition of the front face of the entry to the street. And then once you walk to the back, now you have these two beautiful live oaks that are in this very regal position in the middle of the backyard.
And what have they been, Jess, what have those been there before the original cottage was built?
Yes, they are older than the house. And so they were actually part of, if you look at the neighbors' yards, and you can see all down the backyards, that it's part of an urban forest that was, all these trees were around the same age, and they were all one grove. And so it's almost like you have these inhabitants that were there, and these houses got put in
between the trees. So this is the magic of, as you say, observe your neighborhood, observe the neighborhood. And these trees are there longer than the houses. And so people were using them for shade and shelter, and probably for firewood at times as well, kindling, whatever. It was, they were living in amongst and under the trees, which they get to do again now, or still do. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, Adrian, one of the things that we get to do with our clients is help them to not only imagine their place within their boundary, but we take it to a better place, which is every time you become part of a bigger ecosystem, what happens is that you enlarge the life experience. And so we try to help our clients see beyond the property line, let them see what Jess just talked about, the delightful part of becoming a part of not just a community of houses that are very memorable together, but this urban forest, which is in a sense predates all of the development.
Yeah, for everybody listening, this is why I fell in love with these two people. It's the sensibility of the greater environment. It just makes my heart sing. It's part of the joy of what we get to do. So anyway, before I reminisce on that, I think it's critical to your approach, and I think that it brings something extra to the approach very much.
It's definitely how we connect, because we know you care very much about the land as well. And I think that there's a difference between respecting the land and really seeing it as an ally, as part of your conversation, as one of your clients. And for us, we like to really draw the environment up as part of the brief. And one of the ways that manifested in this particular project was, typically when you have an addition or a need for an addition in a historic or smaller house, you have to move it in a direction so that you have as much yard available to you as possible. You want to have room to do things. And what Nick and I talked about was being able to, instead of putting the addition as far over as we could up against our setback on one side, so that we could have such a big, giant, nice yard and a little walkway, 5-foot walkway. Instead, we shifted it. And so now we have, on either side of the addition, we have what we would call a narrow garden, and then we have our primary garden. And both spaces have different experiences, but you're able to inhabit both of them. And so now when you're living on your property, you can go all the way around the property and feel like you're in a unique, special place, no matter where you are.
And what we really like is the idea of the new addition being inside a garden rather than creating the edge of a garden.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons why this one room wide addition we've done in the back, which sort of twist to move out of the way of the two trees that are crowding us. It allows there to be a kind of participation when our clients are indoor, this was part of the idea of bringing our clients life, a love of the outdoors. One of the thoughts, what we talk about bringing the light indoors, what we really wanted to do was to make the indoors really feel more like the outdoors. And so you'll see if we go through the house that there are some ideas that we had for basically making the spaces inside feel like the spaces outside. In the materials, one of the things that we did with the new addition is that we've used a site. The original house is a beautiful wooden house that's treated very like a lovely lady. It's all painted and pretty, and but the new addition that we put on also is a wooden addition, much newer, but we've treated it with a rough sawn cypress panel on the inside and the outside, and these rough sawn boards, they show the same kind of connection to the outdoors and the woody bark of the trees, but it makes the interior of the house, there's an interior gallery, which we think of as almost a garden that has art in it. And we're trying to blur how people think of interior space and being outdoors.
I love it.
Bringing the addition over brought us closer to all the windows, and the living space is now closer to the tree roots. So we actually had a near 30 feet? It's around 30-foot cantilever that we turned into a bench. And we made that a board form concrete bench in that living space that just at the edge rounds like a surfboard on one edge. And part of the reason of going with such a strong material like that is that when it has this sensation when you're sitting on it that you're almost at a park bench outside, sitting underneath the tree. And it also helps to conduct some of that coolness and some of that the feeling that you get from being outside, where you're noticing temperature changes in your body as you're touching it.
I love it. I love it. And certainly I've seen the photographs and I'm yet to experience it. I always say to people, you can get a lot from a photograph, but you cannot feel a home from a photograph. And to be in this space and feel it is going to be phenomenal, and just taking pause. So you picked up the old house, you moved it across, you lowered it to the ground. You lowered it down that little bit as well, did you? When you shifted the old house?
I actually think of it this way. We did not move the house at all.
Yeah.
We left the house exactly where it is. What we did is we shifted the new addition from the old house. What happened is there's a formality to the old house as how it relates to the street. It's very frontal. You now rise up through a series of pea-stone terraces that create sort of room-size outdoor spaces that really create the entry to our house. And what I wanted to say about that is that what we really did is we basically raised the ground up to the levels of the existing floor plane, so that rather than a series of numerous steps right at the front porch, what we've done is we spread them throughout the landscape, so you don't notice that you're rising through them. And what's happened is it had the effect of making it look as if we down into
We were lucky to work with a fantastic architect, Elisa, with Studio 8SC, and she did such a wonderful job selecting these beautiful plants that really help to immerse you into the site. And they give you such a feeling, they're all native plants, of being immersed in Central Texas, which has its own sort of vocabulary with how the plants and the greenery and how vibrant it is.
Lots of grasses, very drought tolerant.
Yeah, so this idea of connecting the house with the landscape, where you started out saying like it was above and it was not as connected, is bringing the landscape to it rather than it to the landscape, and then bringing that landscape of planting to it as well, so that it created the mood. Take me on the journey. So I've pulled up in the street, I've taken note of all these beautiful trees that are of the area, and also those parks, like you said about Stacey Park and things. I've pulled up in the street. jumped out of the car, maybe walked a couple of houses. I'm going to come to this piece of landscape we're talking about. And now we're going to start doing this gentle rise towards the house. At that first point, I'm really starting to walk on what has been an addition to the home, but it's been in the landscape form. I go up the path, I've got to pause to see our quirky gable and the circle window.
Yes.
You go.
And you'll see when you walk up, a really interesting thing is the sweetness of this white painted horizontal teardrop siding, and how delicate the wood windows are with their beautiful natural wood of the historic.
If you've got a photo of that, share it for people who are watching on
let's
YouTube. Yeah, let's share that. And for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, I think you've got a fair idea of what we're talking about with this just quirkiness that the house has, and then this reconnection of the home to the landscape.
Yes, and what you can see when you walk up is this beautiful, the white teardrop siding, and then you'll see off to the right, just to the south, on the south side, a delicate cantilevered carport. Yep. And it's painted white as well with some natural wood. And what really happens is that it becomes a delicate feature right at the point where you see the historic windows sort of turn into the newer windows of the addition into the owner's bedroom in the back. So it's a nice juxtaposition and an entry to the house as you're going up this sort of more modern terracing with the natural plants. And then you're noticing that there's some things that are also a bit modern.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're being integrated. You're being pulled forward into now from the past.
One of the things, Adrian, I'd like to say is that as architects that are working with the preservationists and people who care about the older homes and have very strict rules about what we can preserve, what we can do to them, essentially our regulation is that we have to be very true to what the old house was. They don't want us faking any additions or trying to enlarge, make new parts look like they were old. But what they want us to do is to essentially to retain the character of what the older home was. Where we get excited as architects is being creative in basically finding ways to add a modern element to that historic older home. And in this case, by twisting the landscape into that new skewed relationship to the house, it's a very modern take, but subtle, not something that catches the attention of somebody has a big concern for the house. So as you arrive to the house, pay attention to that modern landscape that you're entering. And I wanted to say about the only thing that's apparent from the front of the house that is architecturally modern is the cantilevered carport.
Yeah,
it's masquerading a bit as an arbor might have been in the past, but it's designed in a very modern motif with the steel and wood and metal roofing.
It's a little hint of the future, and there's magic in it. There is magic in it, and I think that this ability to do that and do it so beautifully, and then really transform it once, like we've changed photos now to looking back at the front door from inside, and you get the lines of the ceiling, but also the little rounded window above, and you get to really understand like how this is all just slightly offbeat. That's why it got named Offbeat.
Yes. Originally there was a flat ceiling in here with that higher rounded window was attic space. Yeah. And it was in a crawl space. And so by revealing we used a bright white painted sheetrock to follow the gable and all of its unique lines. And what it creates is an almost origami type ceiling that's revealing the goals that the original architect for this rather modest home had. And so it's giving it an elevation to where we're appreciating some of the really more functional aspects of the gable, but we're able to appreciate it as a high art.
We think Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that we think that architecture really is born when the inside and the outside of the building relate to each other.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we would say a building that doesn't really know itself is something where it looks as if somebody had designed the exterior and then somebody had come in and designed an interior. They don't belong to each other. We don't know how they relate. In this case, by exposing the underside of that quirky gabled roof, now it's visible inside the building.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a kind of way of bringing that quirky design inside to the house, and then using that. And what I really want Jessica to do is to talk about how we had this attitude of this is where the surprise happens, and we think a delightful change where our clients who wanted their modern lifestyle begins.
Yes, they definitely bring their beautiful art. There's some gorgeous art in the home. You can see in the entry a bright yellow modern piece. There's
Yeah.
also a bright red modern piece that's not
Mhm.
in this photo. And they are to talk about that marriage of the modern with the historic. And it's it's displayed not only in the architecture, but in their collection as well. I'm going to take you into the new addition now.
When you're visiting this home, there's going to be a tendency to be able to leave this home from going through the garden even, and you'll be able to transition in and out and around in the gardens because there is so much that is happening on the site that will be engaging and pull you out into there because of the way they've designed this addition. Don't forget to pause when you've been through the front door, turn around and look backwards and see what the magic of opening that ceiling up has done, and the way the light falls through there, and the simplicity of that white sheetrock, that it's allowing the light to do all the work with the shadows. And like you said, the origami folds, where everything isn't like the perfect symmetry. Everything holds your eye and takes you on a little journey. And it teaches you a bit about nature. Nature doesn't make any two things exactly the same. Nature does a variation with everything's custom. It might be the same species, it might be whatever, but everything has its own quirk to it. Think of our fingerprints, and this home has a lot of that happening.
Adrian, you're onto something when you're talking about the variety that nature delivers. Sometimes, if we're not careful, we make our evenly lit and maybe a little too carefully produced. One of the thoughts here, our owners are very careful. They care very much about the light, and they have a nice art collection. And we discussed how to display their art in the house. And one of the things that one will see when they come through this entry is an attitude that we've all agreed upon. And that was that we decided not to treat the art as the highest object. We wanted to treat the art like it was ordinary, and we wanted to make the ordinary things art. And so what we mean by that is that the designed light, when you look at this, you won't see lights that are shining and pointing at the special art pieces. In fact, you'll see that there was quite a bit of effort to create light that you don't know where the source comes from, but it gives us a light that varies through the house. It's lighter in some areas, darker in other areas. But what it allows us to do is to experience the art as if it's part of your ordinary life. And as I say, makes your life more extraordinary.
I love it. I imagine in this home also, the way you've connected it with the exterior light as well is fantastic for living for your circadian rhythms. Your engagement with your own health and your own well-being, with the way the light shifts through the space, which it wouldn't have done as the original little old house. It would have been far more contained, and you would have been less engaged. But now this home is actually engaging in your health and wellness with the way that the light shifts, and you're a part of that in your everyday journey. Again, a lovely piece of thoughtful architecture. This photo that we've got up now is a long view from the back to the front door, and you really get to see the rhythm of the timbers that you've set up, and this long concrete bench that gave you your ability to do the cantilever, and this single wide kind of narrative that you've got with light falling in everywhere and trees that feel like that they're almost growing through the home.
Adrian, this is a view that shows the value of creating the small garden or the narrow garden on the west. You're seeing it just off to the right of the image. You're seeing the primary garden, which is the east side of this room. So you can imagine how the light changes during the day. It allows them to be a part of their, the light to be a part of their day. But one of the things I love about this image that our photographer captured was that we talked to them about how important it was for the tree to be a part of the space. And so this actually shows what it's like by making this long concrete bench that extends all the way from the kitchen, the dining room, and the living. It just creates an informal way to engage, to spend a moment or two, even to pause during your day along this. And one of the delights that I have, and Jess and I have seen this many times, is when we come over, even when people are coming to the house to work, people take advantage of this. This is the sort of thing where architecture can give a moment. And what happens is people don't even notice how comfortable they become in it. Very often when you're in somebody's house, you just don't feel as quick to sit in their couch.
I was about to say that. Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily jump and sit in their sofa in their living room, but you'd easily perch yourself on the edge of the concrete bench because it's like a park bench.
Yes.
And that is something as architects that we're excited about, because it's what we think, it's where I think the architecture is doing its work in the subliminal.
Yes.
It's connecting with us and we don't even know it. And as I say, I think it's where we think that the architecture is disappearing.
Yes. I think on the tours, like when the home's open, you're going to end up with 30 people sitting there and like thinking about unwrapping their lunch in the park. It's gonna...
Yes.
I can imagine it as a place to live, which would be, my daughters would be doing dance parties and catwalks along that bench against the garden as a backdrop.
There's so many opportunities. One of the other things that you can notice in this photo, that if you go back and take a look at the images on YouTube, you can see that we've brought that vertical rough sawn cypress wood inside. So it's an exterior cladding that then wraps inside, and it becomes part of this new addition on the walls and through the kitchen. And you can see one of the things that happens is that we have these all along the bench where we have windows letting all that beautiful eastern light in. You're actually seeing as well that we've created sort of an informal post that's varied in its size. And so because it's varied and it's just thinner than you would expect to see a post between the windows, it creates this sense of being inside of your own forest inside the house. And it just to the left of the image is one of our beautiful live oaks that you can see just being embraced by the screen porch that's just off the kitchen and the owner's bedroom.
Adrian, one of the things you wanted us to point out, things that people might miss.
Places to take pause, like you just said with Jess was saying with that rough sawn cypress, these things, your subconscious will know something's different here and will feel right. It's actually, you're analyzing why it feels right. You're playing deeper to what it has to offer. So sorry.
That's right. A lot of this is subtlety. But one thing that if you pause enough, you'll notice that there is essentially a concert of smooth and rough cypress. So that a lot of these sticks that Jessica was describing are smooth and they're nice to the touch. They're beautiful and they have a plainness about them or I should say an elegance.
Yeah.
But they're set against some of the of the wall planes and the exterior walls, which are really very unique. Our builder helped us to intercept these boards in the lumber yards before they were planed all to the same depth. And so we have, not only are these vertical boards varied in widths, but they're actually varying in depth, their depth, their thickness. And so there is an irregular shadowing and kind of rustic quality that, along with the grain and I should say the marks of the saw that cut the wood, all of those memories are left in the wood to discover if you pause long enough.
And that wood also, another interesting thing about the cypress, a lot of times when you're thinking of wood sills and things in more moist, intense places, like in the bathrooms or in areas like that, if you take a moment when you go into the owner's, I'm going to show a picture here. When you go into the owner's bath, we have the rain head, shower head, and shower fixture on the left. And you can see we've created a wood ledge where you can have your bottles and shampoos and things. And then just to the right, you'll see this darker wood in the windowsills, which are a high window. And then down below, you'll see next to a freestanding bathtub, you'll see this lovely wood ledge. And this ledge goes the entire length of the whole room, all the way to the vanities, which you can't see in this image. And the wood, as we were discussing with our builder, what type of wood we could get that would be good in this type of environment, the sort of more moist environment, Nick and I were thinking of, what if we could find sinker-cypress wood? And so sinker-cypress is a type of wood that back in the early 1900s, and late 1800s, they would actually send goods down the Mississippi River typically, and they would send them down on these wood barges. And the wood would, over time, get waterlogged and sink to the bottom of the river, at which point now, after 60, 70, so many years underwater, it's become petrified to where it's very water resistant. And it's actually, when you go in the owner's bathroom, take note of that wood along the ledges and all the windowsills, because it is cypress, just like the exterior cladding and the closets in the owner's bedroom, but it's a different type. It's a different way that the wood, the cypress, has experienced life. And so you're looking at wood from a different lifespan.
I love it. I love it. What a beautiful story. So this is sinker-cypress wood that you've used in there, which is basically off the bottom of the Mississippi River. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It was harvested and reclaimed. And we as architects, one of the things you'll see in the house is that the interior of the house, and even the exterior, has a very limited material palette that we've used a few different materials, and we were excited to think of this old cypress that could join our newer cypress and create a linked piece of architecture. And we think that it tells the story better than had we given up and used some sort of exotic wood, which would have had no connection with the concept of the house.
I love the way that you keep repeating the story but it's so subtle. It's so subtle, and it's a place to be experienced. It's incredible like that. I know Jess has just shared us the backyard, which we'll go through quickly on this. And this is how the house engages again with these live oaks. So take us from there.
So one of the things you'll notice in this photo is that the addition has a galvanized metal roof. And it's actually wrapping it's a rounded parabola. And the whole reason why, when you see that, is that there's multiple things going on here. One, we wanted to have the roof be below the historic ridge, the ridge line, because we didn't want to see the addition from the front. So by rounding it, we were able to come in a little bit. We were able to get a little more height, but stay beneath that ridge. And using a material, that galvanized metal, is very reminiscent of vernacular, traditional buildings and barns and things that you find in Texas, Central Texas. So it's whimsical, and the rounding is also playing on where you see the rounded windows in the front of the house, that whimsical front window. And then also when you see the curve of the bench inside the main part of the living space, you see the rounded curved side of that. And so these curves are coming back, they're repeating as a language throughout the house. And you'll see also that the two live oaks, which are just the premier beautiful pieces in the backyard or in the primary garden, they're actually being embraced by the screen porch, the concrete cantilevered, beautiful addition. And then you also have it wrapped on the other side by an arbor. And that's a steel and wood arbor where we have our studio space. And that studio space is really lovely. It connects to a lap pool, which you can see on the left side of the screen, which is, it's almost not even a lap, it's like a plunge pool for our very active owners who have active, fit, healthy lifestyles. And they're able to have a fitness studio and a sauna right connected to their house.
It's fabulous. It really is. So taking pause again when you're in this, go and discover the backyard, obviously, and discover how this all comes together. But look for those roof lines, because you could very easily be taken away by what's down at eye level. Look up, check out that roof line. And then this point that Jess is making about the fact that it doesn't interrupt the historic nature of the original home. And yet it lets these occupants or these owners of this home live very connected to nature. It reminds me a little bit of when you go into some of the national parks with the cantilever and stuff, and how they say don't walk on the ground but walk on our walkways, and just stay this delicate touch, because the ground's so precious and you'll damage it if too many of you walk on it. It has a little bit of that feel, but yet it's fully engaged. I love it. I love it. I think it's going to be a very unexpected gem where people are going to come through that front door and they're going to go, oh, hold on a second, where am I now? Like it's such a shift. And then to be able to turn backwards and take in, once you're inside, take in how that original piece of the home has changed as well to support the new living without losing anything from the historic nature.
Adrian, I might just mention when you're talking about the outdoors, for anybody who comes to visit the house, do spend time in the backyard.
Yeah.
Look at the fact that the concrete bench is cantilevering over the tree, the live oak trees, is a very special feature. You can see that it gives room for the tree, but it all allows the house to be near it. We think that's something that actually is quite remarkable in this structure, even though I would say a very small piece of architecture. It has a big heart. It's really showing its concern for the bigger environment.
I love that term that you just used there. I'm going to steal that one. It's a small piece of architecture with a big heart. That is so much about how we look after land and how we look after environment, is keeping that heart at the forefront. And one of the things that you've got to commend cities like Austin and places where they do have preservation around these trees, and that you don't get the choice of knocking them over and just manipulating it that way. You get the choice of working with them, and they start to form a piece of your life, and then you start to appreciate them more for that. I think it's beautiful. Guys, can't wait to be in it. Very excited.
So excited to have you and to bring the community in. I think one of the most special things about the AIA Austin home tour is that it's an opportunity for you not just to see great houses, it's an opportunity for you to see them with your community and to really be able to connect and hear other people's comments about how they're experiencing it. It's really special. Exactly.
It's beyond seeing, as well as you feel everything. You get to feel everything. And that's from that community as well. You get to feel their love of it. Yes. Awesome. I can't wait to see you guys. We will talk very soon. Take care.
All right.
Day. Thanks for recording.
Thank you. You as well.
Very enjoyed it as always.
Thank you.
Cheers. special edition that I'm creating for the Austin Homes Tour, which is in October of 2024, I have Casey Woods joining me. Now, Casey is the photographer who has photographed all the houses that the tour is going to do an expose on. Very excited to talk to Casey. Casey, OFFbeat. It sounds like we're going to talk about something that we shouldn't be talking about, but the off from A, which stands for Nick and Jess Deavers, or architects. This couple, father and daughter, that created this place. Pretty special, and a really interesting dynamic that the two of them have that creates magic. It's fantastic. So this home called OFFbeat has a few surprises, and
it really does.
I would love you to take me through this house from your eyes as the photographer, and right from the street, maybe, I think. And because
yes,
it's a journey.
It is a journey. An older part of Austin, and especially the street or part of the street, something that the Deavers will speak better to this, but I don't know if it's deemed exactly historic, but there wasn't, or if the owners just wanted to they didn't want to make tons of changes to the front facade. And so you can tell OFFbeat, you can see right here that there's some symmetry, and then there's some asymmetry happening all at the same time. And with the window and with the door, and they took that theme and ran with it through the house. But yes, you pull up and it looks great, and the landscaping, lawn, everything's lovely. And then you open the door, and for me, at least, completely unexpected. It was such a joy and a surprise to enter into. This is one I think people are going to love.
Are you going to share an inside one? So
I'll share an inside view.
So for listeners who are listening and not watching, this is also on YouTube. So look up Talk Design on YouTube. You will find this home in there, and you'll see when you open the door, it's like you're stepping through the wardrobe in, what was the movie? The Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe. You go to another space. Yeah.
You really do.
They set you up on the outside for something that you think is not what's going to happen when that door opens.
There is this wall of light. So here we're looking at that front door.
Yeah.
And what you don't see in this photo is this ceiling. It's almost like a cathedral in this little entryway. The ceiling goes up and turns, and the lines of the sheetrock with the light bouncing around it are just beautiful. And then there's lovely art in this entryway. But then there is just this wall of windows. This house wraps around this beautiful tree right here. And it basically makes the tree in the exterior part of the living space.
Wow.
By bringing it in, and it has a great feel to it. Yeah.
It is a house full of windows, like this whole back. Well, I say back. We've come through the front door, and the front wall of the home has 4 windows in it. And then you come in here and you only have windows. It's like you're floating in the garden, but you're in the home. And then the timber detailing also inside the home just brings the outdoors into the home at the same time. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And to your point, the detailing.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say something I love around Austin, certainly happens in California and other states as well, but in Austin, the preservation of trees and the fact that it's one thing to own a lot or say that we're going to build into here. The other thing is that you will not be cutting down certain trees, or you may be trimming them. And for the architectural challenge, that is that you have to maintain these trees as if they are solid parts of structure, right down to their root ball and the preservation of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think part of this cantilevers to take care of the root of the tree. The roots of the tree, this back part of it. Yeah. The canopy the tree canopy that the city holds for the residents is wonderful and lovely, but can make
Challenges.
challenges, but it can make challenges. But it's so, I think, beautiful too when architects and homeowners embrace that. And it does feel like the house kind of wraps around the nature and the nature wraps around the house
Yeah.
all at the same time.
I think it's really important. And like I was talking with clients yesterday, and there's a tree, and they said, I was going, you can't go that close to your tree, da 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 da. They can remove the tree. We don't have any, in this case, there is nothing that says I can't remove the tree, but it's a beautiful tree. And I said, I've got a solution. I can notch it around this tree. And I think we would make the architecture respond to the environment instead of just, you'll live with your tree, because the architecture will make you live with your tree as well. And I think in this case, it's beautiful. As you said, it does cantilever pass so that it protects the root ball of the tree. And the tree is right close up to the windows.
It is. Yeah.
So you could reach out and climb it. In this home, other than the surprise of it, I know there's some other surprises as well with color. Tell me about that and photographing it.
It was interesting. I loved it. I love the pop of colors. I love all of the warmth of this space, balancing all of the warmth from the leather to, I think this is cedar cladding, the kitchen area and the walls in here and the beams, and playing with all of that warm light and trying to find that balance. And then there are vibrant pops of color from the art in other spaces that give the house wonderful life too.
Yeah. I think, it's an exciting home without being frenetic, and you could still a home you relax in, and it is.
You really do. Yeah.
Your favorite space?
I think
I'm
my
picking
favorite
it's the
space,
kitchen, but let's.
I love a kitchen, but I think this space, if I can just call the space that we're looking at one big space, you've got living, dining, kitchen, but I love how they are open together. I love how they are embracing this view and this light. This bench is just asking for people to sit down and relax and be together in this space.
I love the way you said that. It's asking for people to sit down. So it's got this long bench along the windows, and it's almost like you're nestled under the tree when you sit in. And it is asking you just to sit down, to take time, to pause, to be together. I love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A designer is only as good as the projects you can win, and life is far too short to be consistently winning mediocre projects. So if you want to get yourself out of the rat race and start winning high-value projects for high-value clients, that's people who appreciate great design, go to my website, archmarketing.org, and download some of the free tools and resources and start winning decent, high-value projects consistently. That's archmarketing.org, and help yourself to whatever you can find.